So everyone, the Koppen classification from 1918 was a very excellent start on looking at temperature, precipitation, and vegetation across the globe based on areas that nobody had ever visited. And it was a very accurate prediction, a very accurate hypothesis. Since then, that Koppen classification has been expanded. It hasn't been modified so much as it's been expanded to different areas within each of the 6 original classifications. So, for instance, I wanted to give you some specific examples, kind of like another meteorological tourism whirlwind tour. And I thought that I would talk to you about different climates within the classification so you can figure out where you might want to live. I know where I might want to live based on this, and we can always discuss over in a discussion section. So let me know if you'd like to do that. But let's get into it a bit. And when we look into this, we can first look at tropical moist climates. There are at least 3 different types of tropical moist climates. I'll talk about the big 3. And the general characteristics of all of these types in this classification are that they have warm year-round temperatures and abundant rainfall. They can extend north and south of the equator, anywhere from 15 to 25 degrees. Mostly it's 15 to 20 degrees. And when you think about these types, we can label them with 2 letters, and it goes back to the German. So that's been maintained. This is the group A, that's always the first letter. The group B, the second letter in the type always refers to the precipitation. And sometimes you'll get a 3rd letter in the type, and that refers to temperature. So that's why we've been talking about all this. There's no way to look at climate change when you don't understand how to classify climate to begin with. When we look at these, a very common type that is cited is AF. F is for, I think this is feucht, which is German for wet. And it's your tropical wet quintessential rainforest that we're talking about along the equatorial plain. There's also tropical monsoon, which is seasonal, and that can come in often. What you see is wet winters or wet summers. So that is labeled AM. What you're seeing there is the monsoon area of Vietnam, which is well known for its rice paddies in the valleys. And you can see how topographical change could factor into that temperature and precipitation classification with vegetation. Over here, you're seeing a savanna, and that is a tropical wet season during the summer, and it's quite dry during the winter. So typical savanna-like vegetation where some of the larger trees can grow quite a bit during the summer, but otherwise it's lower vegetation under that because you do have a very dry winter. The B classification in Koppen, and I'm going to move myself so that I'm not interfering. Oh, sorry about this. I was wrong. This is type A, giving you a little bit more information on type A, tropical moist. For instance, we talked about the rainforests right along the equator. In fact, this is at 4 degrees south, just 4 degrees below the equator. And you're seeing that there is a lot of moisture throughout the year. And when we talk about the savannas, which this one is about 11 degrees north of the equator, just a bit higher, with a drier winter and a wetter summer. Okay, so these are both tropical, very warm climates, and they're moist, but they may be moist at different times of the year. The second classification, classification B, are the dry climates. And the dry climates, obviously characterized by deficient precipitation, where evaporation and transpiration exceed precipitation. Now, evaporation from lakes or from rivers, transpiration, what plants will put out as waste materials along with carbon dioxide, that's transpiration, that exceeds the precipitation coming in. So these are very dry areas, and they extend between the 20s and 30s. Are the subtropical deserts. You'll also get very dry climates at the poles, but we're going to concentrate on these types within the B group of dry climates. They're usually found in the middle of continents, hence they're called continental regions, surrounded by mountains. So there's not a lot of land-sea distribution there. And there are two major types. The first one, BW, this is for the drier season in the winter. And those are the arid areas like Arizona and Nevada, again, between 20 and 30 degrees latitudes. These are very dry areas. And the BS type S is for steppe, like plateau. And that's known, this is Denver right here. So again, you have the rain shadow from the mountains and the desert, that is the Denver climate. You may think of flying into Denver to go for your ski vacation, but you don't ski in Denver. You go over the mountains to get to the windward side where the precipitation is. The precipitation is not in the BS area where the steppe is. When I look at this Koppen classification a little bit more profoundly, we can look at Phoenix, Arizona, Nevada, as being the BW area. It's driest during the winter. That's why people head out to Phoenix for the warm, dry winter, and the classic cactus vegetation. And when we talk about Denver, we're talking about more precipitation during the summer, but not a lot. And that precipitation during the summer is really due to convection and the heating and some of the moisture that comes off of the Gulf, but not a lot. So these are dry areas. This is more of a plateau steppe area, more of a rain shadow, and this is a classic dry, arid area right in the subsidence high at about 30 degrees latitude. When we talk about Group C, which is the moist subtropical mid-Atlantic climates like New Jersey, we're at the top of the Group C climate system. General characteristics, humid with mild winters. And they are generally on the eastern and western edges of the continents. So they are impacted by the land-sea distribution, as we are, and they're generally about 25 to 40 degrees latitude, more like 32 to about 40 degrees latitude. Three major subtypes are CFA, humid subtropical, more like Alabama, and CFB, more like Oregon, that's a marine climate, and dry summer subtropical Mediterranean, which is more like interior California. So I've decided personally that this is my favorite climate, Oregon. I like the marine climate, and I've looked all over the world on that map there to try to find out where am I going to retire. So that's where I'm going. But let's see a little bit more in depth about these climates. When we contrast the environment in Alabama, in Mobile, Alabama, you've got a warm area here and even precipitation throughout the year. And when you contrast that with the marine environment, which is known as CFB, you've got an area that isn't quite as warm, but still quite moist and a little bit drier during the winter. Excuse me, drier during the summer. You can conversely say it's wetter during the winter, and that is because of the movement of that high off the Pacific that's moving south during the winter. So we talked about the fact that when that high moves south during the winter, it lets in storms that Pineapple Express. But I still like the environment anyway, so I'll go for a CFB anytime. When we talk about the next classification, I didn't talk about Mediterranean. Let me move this. And this is the Mediterranean environment, which is another C type. And there are, in fact, CSB types in San Francisco and CSA types in Sacramento. Only about 100 miles difference, a world apart. And just knowing this, traveling this area, because it's so climatically diverse, great area to travel. But this CFB area in San Francisco, really moderate temperatures, moderated by the ocean currents and the land-sea distribution. And then when you get into the valley in here, the Sacramento Valley, you really start to see the temperatures rise without that land-sea distribution issue, because remember, you're cut off by this mountain range. You've got some topographical issues there, and you've got a rain shadow that produces really stunted vegetation in this area and is known for their fires as a result of it. Very dry area. So those are some of the climates that we're looking at Class C. And when we get to D, which I think of as the Catskills and the ski areas up north. These are moist continental climates that are known for their warm to cool summers. That's why people go to the Catskills and Vermont to try to get away from the heat, but cold, severe winters, which is why you try to ski there. These climates are changing because they are more extreme, so they are more prone to change. They're generally north of the subtropical mid-latitude climates. There's 3 major types. You've probably been exposed to 2 of them, so let's go over it. There's the humid continental, meaning within the continent, and it's extreme within the continent because there's not that land-sea distribution which evens out temperature and evens out precipitation. So these are humid continental with hot summers. Think Iowa and corn. It gets its humidity straight up from the Gulf of Mexico. And that high that has migrated lets that moisture come right up for that convection and thunderstorms. You can think Tornado Alley. You can also think humid, a very humid corridor there. They both go together. So these are, this is Iowa and corn. DFA is the type that we're looking at in Group D. Then there's humid continental with cool summers. That I think of as the Catskills. So a lot of precipitation keeps this foliage very, very vivid for a longer period of time. We could talk about that as well. But then there's another type in this classification, subpolar. And let's go into looking into these a little bit more specifically because they seem so different. When we're comparing Iowa and its humid continental, we see that the precipitation peaks in the summer. Good for the corn, coming right up from the Gulf of Mexico. When we look at Winnipeg or when we look at the Catskills, we're seeing that there's more of a change in temperature and there's less precipitation during the summer. These areas up in Winnipeg, not so impacted by the Gulf of Mexico because they're farther north. The areas in the Catskills not so impacted by precipitation because they're cut off by the Appalachian